Good morning, students. Today, from your Flamingo books, we are doing chapter 4, The Rat Trap, written by Salma Lagerlöf. Salma Lagerlöf was a Swedish author and teacher. She published her first novel, Goster Berling's Saga, at the age of 33. She was the first woman to win the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1909. The story Rat Trap is set amidst the mines of Sweden, which is rich in iron ore. The story is told somewhat in the manner of a fairy tale. It is about a man who sold small rat traps of wire. Through the metaphor of a rat trap, the author strikes a philosophic note. The author has a firm belief that the essential goodness in a human being can be awakened through understanding and love. Once upon a time, there was a man who went around selling small rat traps of wire. So, we are reading a story of a person who used to sell rat traps, and these rat traps were made of wire. He made them himself at odd moments from the material he got by begging in the stores or at the big farms. So these rat traps was made by this person, this man himself, and how he made it, he used to collect the material from the farms. Whatever he used to get from the farms, he used to collect it, and certain times he used to beg from the stores also, and from that material he used to make these rat traps. But even so, the business was not specially profitable. Now, when he used to sell these rat traps, he was not able to earn good money. It was not profitable business for him. So he had to resort to both begging and petty thievery to keep both body and soul together. But to survive, to keep body and soul together, that is to survive, to live, he had to rely on what? He used to beg also. And certain time he used to steal also, rob people of trivial things. Even so, his clothes were in rags, his cheeks were sunken, and hunger gleamed in his eyes. And his clothes were in rags, that is, he used to wear torn clothes. His cheeks were sunken, his cheeks were thin, that is, lowered inside, and hunger gleamed in his eyes. So his eyes depicted, shown hunger, that is, he was very poor. No one can imagine how sad and monotonous life can appear to such a vagabond who plods along the road left to his own meditations. So it is very hard to imagine that how this person that is this vagabond students are homeless, that is they wander from one place to another. So this is very difficult for us to understand that how this person used to live his life. His life might be very sad. He was homeless, he did not have a family, he used to wander from one place to another, and his life was monotonous, boring. Who plods, he used to walk along the road left to his own meditation, and he used to meditate on various things. He used to think about various things. But one day this man had fallen into a line of thought which really seemed to him entertaining. So one day some idea, some thought came to his mind, and this thought amused him, it entertained him, it gave him some fun. He had naturally been thinking of his rat traps when suddenly he was struck by the idea that the whole world about him, the whole world with its lands and seas, its cities and villages, was nothing but a big rat trap. So, because he is associated with rat traps, his life is altogether associated with making a rat trap, selling a rat trap. So, it came naturally to him that he started thinking of rat trap, and then he associated and draw a parallel that how this rat trap, that this whole world is a rat trap, and this whole world is what, with its land and seas, its cities and villages, was nothing but a big rat trap. So this world is offering baits, land, seas, cities, villages, everything was a huge rat trap, big rat trap. It had never existed for any other purpose than to set baits for people. It offered riches and joy, shelter and food, heat and clothing, exactly as the rat trap offered cheese and pork. And as soon as anyone let himself be tempted to touch the bait, it closed in on him, and then everything came to an end. So, this peddler, this vagabond tells us that how to trap the rat. We place a cheese or a pork, that is the food item, on the hook of that rat trap, and the rat gets attracted to it and is trapped in the rat trap. Similarly, he is saying that this world is offering bait. The bait of what? The bait of riches, joy, shelter, food, heat, clothing to the people, and people get tempted to reach out to this bait, to touch these baits. Now, yes, everyone gets tempted. Shelter, food, clothing, basic amenities of life. So, people get tempted, everyone wants it. Riches, there's no person who does not want to be rich, to have money. Joy, everyone wants joy and happiness. Heat, that is to be in close contact with nature. So everyone wants to be in close contact with nature. So it says that people get attracted to these baits and they get trapped. It closed in on him. The people get attracted to this world, and that then get trapped into it, and then everything came to an end. So people get attracted to the comforts and joys of food, shelter, and they are attracted. So he's drawing a parallel between the rat trap and the world, and this world is what? This world is a big rat trap. The world had, of course, never been very kind to him, so it gave him unwanted joy to think ill of it in this way. Now, we have been told that the world have never treated the peddler kindly, so it gives him happiness to think bitter of this world, unwanted, that is unaccustomed joy. It became a cherished pastime of his during many dreary ploddings to think of people he knew who had let themselves be caught in the dangerous snare, and of course who were still circling around the bait. It became a cherished pastime. He liked it, he loved it, loved to think what? Think of these people. Think when during dull, dreary ploddings, when he's moving from one place to another, it's monotonous life, it's dull life for him, and he is all lost in meditation. So this thought to think of people whom he knew are caught. They are caught in this dangerous snare, that is the trap, the trap of to succumb to temptations. And when they are succumb to this temptation, and they want to touch the bait of riches and joys, and they are snared, they are trapped in it, and this thought gave him happiness. He felt amused to think of such people. One dark evening, as he was trudging along the road, he caught sight of a little grey cottage by the roadside, and he knocked on the door to ask shelter for the night. So one evening he was walking slowly with heavy steps, with the same monotonous, dull, dreary life. He is moving, and it was dark, it was getting dark. So he saw by the roadside a cottage, a small little cottage. He knocked on the door to ask shelter for the night. He knocked on the door and asked the owner that if he can provide shelter to him. Nor was he refused. So the owner of the cottage did not refuse him. He gladly and happily took the person in the house, in the cottage. Instead of the soft faces which ordinarily met him, the owner, who was an old man without wife or child, was happy to get someone to talk to in his loneliness. Now, usually, what happened whenever the peddler or this vagabond is looking for shelter, is looking to talk to people, the people made faces. What faces? Sore faces, that is, unpleasant faces, bad tempered, and they used to shoo him away. But then, this owner, the owner of the cottage, he was all lonely. So, he was happy and glad to get someone to talk to because he did not had wife, he did not had child, so he was happy that somebody, some guest is there, and that would break the silence of his house, his life, and it would be a company, and he welcomes this peddler to his cottage. Immediately he put the porridge pot on the fire and gave him some supper. So he prepared food for himself and the guest, that is the peddler, and he prepared porridge for the evening meal. Then he carved off such a big slice from his tobacco roll that it was enough both for the stranger's pipe and his own. Then he took a tobacco roll, he divided it, he cut it into two halves and then into two or in half, and then gave one to this peddler. And then they both enjoyed smoking. Finally, he got out an old pack of cards and played mules with his guests until bedtime. And then, after having food, after enjoying his pipe, they started playing cards, and they played a certain game, that is mules, by night time, by bedtime, till it was time to sleep. The old man was just as generous with his confidences as with his porridge and tobacco. Now, this old person was a generous person, a very liberal person, a kind person. He shared the food, he shared his tobacco, he started playing with him, and then he started letting out his secrets to the person. The guest was informed at once that in his days of prosperity, his host had been a crofter at Ram's Joe Works and had worked on the land. So the guest, that is the peddler, he was informed by the owner that when he was in his days of prosperity, when he was rich, his host, that is this old man, was a crofter. Crofter is a person who works on a farm. So he used to work on the land at Ramsjo Iron Works. And when he was prosperous, he used to work on the land and he used to earn the money from there. Now that he was no longer able to do day labor, it was his cow which supported him. Now, because he's old and he can't do that much work, day labor. So now he's supported financially by his cow. Yes, that Bossy was extraordinary. Bossy here refers to cow. The cow is extraordinary. She could give milk for the creamery every day, and last month he had received all of 30 kroner in payment. So he gets milk from this cow for the creamery, that is a place where milk and cream are turned into butter or cheese. So he sells milk in that creamery and he earns money from there. So this boss, the cow, is extraordinary because the cow is a reason to earn money. And last month he had received all of a 30 kroner in payment. Kroner, that is a Swedish currency. So he says by selling that milk he had got 30 kroner money last month. The stranger must have seemed incredulous, for the old man got up and went to the window, took down a leather pouch which hung on a nail in the very window frame, and picked out three wrinkled 10 kroner bills. Now, when the owner of that cottage informs the peddler that he earns money from his cow, that is the milk that he sells, he has earned 30 kroner, the stranger was not able to believe. His facial expressions showed that he was not believing in the story of this old person. So to make him believe that he is not making any story or building up story, the old man goes close to the window. On that very window frame there was a nail. On that nail was hung a leather pouch. So from that leather pouch, he takes out three wrinkled 10 kroner bills. Bills, that is note. Wrinkled, that is he has placed it in a very careless manner. So he takes that note out to show him, to show to the peddler that, see, I'm not creating any story. I have earned 30 kroner last month. These he held up before the eyes of his guest, nodding knowingly, and then stuffed them back into the pouch. So he shows that money to the vagabond, and then very carelessly he places the same money in the pouch. The next day, both men got up in good season. So the next day, early morning, both of them get up in a happy mood. The crofter was in a hurry to milk his cow, and the other man probably thought he should not stay in bed when the head of the house had gotten up. So the crofter had to attend to the cow, and this peddler, this vagabond, thought it would be very bad for him to lay in bed when the owner is awakened. He should get up also. So he also awakened. He got up from the bed. They left the cottage at the same time. So both of them left the cottage. The crofter locked the door and put the key in his pocket. So the crofter locks the door and places the key in his pocket. The man with the rat trap said goodbye and thank you, and thereupon each went his own way. So the man with the rat traps, that is this rat trap seller, he said thank you to the owner of that cottage. Thank you for what? Thank you for the hospitality. Thank you for the generosity that he had shown. And both of them went their own way. But half an hour later, the rat trap peddler stood again before the door. So after half an hour, the rat trap peddler returns back to where? Before the door, that is the door of that old cottage. He returns back. He did not try to break in, however. He only went up to the windows, smashed a pane, stuck in his hand, and got hold of the pouch with the 30 kroner. He took the money and thrust it into his own pocket. So he returns back, and he does not break the doors and enters inside. No, he does not do any such idiotic thing. He simply goes close to the window and he breaks violently the window pane. He thrust his hand inside that window, and on that very window was the nail and the pouch hung. So he takes that pouch. From that pouch he takes out the 30 kroner bills. He takes that money and places that money in his pocket. Then he hung the leather pouch very carefully back in its place and went away. So he does not consider anything for that old person, his hospitality or the faith he had shown in him. And he steals his money and places the leather pouch back onto its place and leaves that place. As he walked along with the money in his pocket, he felt quite pleased with his smartness. So he was very happy. He has that money in his pocket and is happy with the smartness, that how he has robbed that money. He realized, of course, that at first he dared not continue on the public highway but must turn off the road into the woods. So he thought that it would not be right for him to continue on a public highway. He should avoid it lest he would be caught. So he enters the wood, that is the forest. He takes the path of the forest. During the first hours, this caused him no difficulty. So initially he was not at all in any problem. Later in the day it became worse, for it was a big and confusing forest which he had gotten into. So when later in the day he thought that it is getting worse for him, is walking and walking and walking, and he realizes that the forest is a huge one, it's a big one, and it is very confusing. He tried to be sure to walk in a definite direction, but the paths twisted back and forth so strangely. So he thought that it would be better for him that he takes on just one direction, but it was all a labyrinth of twisted path. He got confused. He walked and walked without coming to the end of the wood, and finally he realized that he had only been walking around in the same path of the forest. And he was walking and walking and walking, but he did not come out of that forest. He was just getting more confused with his paths, with his twists and turns, and he realized that he had been walking in the same part of the forest time and again. All at once, he recalled his thoughts about the world and the rat trap. Now his own turn had come. He had let himself be fooled by a bait and had been caught. Now, when he realized that he's not able to come out of this forest, he has been trapped. He remembers his own meditation, his own idea of the world being a rat trap, and he realizes that how he has fooled himself by the bait of 30 kroner bills, and he got attracted to that 30 kroner bills. He stole that money, and now he himself has been caught. It's just not caught in the forest, he's caught in his own guilt. He was guilty stricken. The whole forest, with its trunks and branches, its thickets and fallen logs, closed in upon him like an impenetrable prison from which he could never escape. So he realized that how this it was an impenetrable prison. Impenetrable, that is, it cannot be passed through. So this forest was an impenetrable prison for him, with the trunks, branches, thickets of the forest, as he was enclosed by this forest. And he realized that it would not be he would not be able to come out of this escape, the escape of the forest or the trap he had fallen into. And he himself felt helpless, like a mouse that is trapped in a rat trap.